Hello and good morning. I am getting started with some of our group counseling webinars and lives and all of that. It's very early here in Hawaii. It's like 5:15. It's very early for me. I don't know if you guys are early risers, but I'm definitely not, especially in the summer. But I figured I would get up early today to start this one because everyone else in my house is still sleeping. I can hear the dogs snoring in the room behind me, but I was hoping this would mean that we'd have some peace and quiet to talk about things related to group counseling before everybody in my house wakes up. So today we are going to talk about one of the things that I get asked all the time. So a few months ago when I mentioned doing these lives and webinars to talk about group counseling, I had a little question box, and one of the things that people asked most often was just like how to get started in that first session. People said like, I want to dive in and get started to make the most of our time, but then sometimes the kids don't feel comfortable talking about it right away. So I thought it would be good to talk about what I do in the first session of group counseling, just to kind of lay the foundation, help everybody feel comfortable, and make sure I'm covering all the bases to get started. So what I was going to talk about today is the 4 things that I do in the first session, no matter what the topic is or no matter what the focus of the group is. So the first thing that I always want to do is some sort of icebreaker, right? We want the kids to feel comfortable in group. We want them to get to know each other. And this doesn't have to be anything huge or really long. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just a small portion of your session, just so that they can feel comfortable with each other. And I really like to do like a roll and respond, where they're rolling a die or rolling dice and then answering questions related to it, or like a card deck draw, where we just have some conversation prompts on cards and they draw them. It doesn't have to be anything super extravagant. For my groups, like my self-control group, I might like to do something that's kind of movement-based to give them an opportunity to move around in the room and move around in their space. And it also gives me a little bit more insight to how things are going for them and what that might look like for them. The questions that I use for icebreakers kind of vary depending on the group. I like to keep it group focused. I don't want it to just be totally random. I do like to have some opportunity for just get to know you questions, but I also kind of want to get a little bit of a read on my students from the beginning. Now, like in an anxiety group or like a worry warriors group, I wouldn't have them like roll a die and share your biggest worry in your life, right? We don't want to dive in too deep, especially in those types of groups, because students probably already are feeling a little bit anxious about the group. But it could be something like, tell us what you do when you feel worried, or tell us something that helps you feel better when you are worried, something simple like that. But I always want to start with some sort of icebreaker. And if you guys want to, you can comment with like what your favorite icebreaker is, and other people will be able to see it. When I reshare this video, I'm going to save it, because who knows what everybody's doing in the summer. And I know that there's no way to pick like a super convenient time for everyone. But that way, if they are able to see the video when I reshare it, they can see your favorite icebreakers. I have a list on my blog too, just of 10 that I really like roll and response. I also really like to use those Rory's story cubes. Do you guys know what those are? Have you seen them? They look like dice, they're cubes, and then there's like an image on each side of them. And you can have students pick 2 or 3 of them and roll them, and then they have images, and you could have them tell the group something about themselves related to the images that are on there. Those are kind of fun too. My students always like to use those and use their creativity to tell us something about themselves. But I can link my blog post about icebreakers with this as well. So if you want to, you can share your favorite icebreakers. Just comment down below. I don't think I'll be able to see it right now, but other people will. So hopefully that'll be helpful for them. So anyway, after icebreakers, I always want to set norms, right? That's something we want to do in our first session, just so students know what's expected of them. They know how they're supposed to treat everyone in group and engage with others in the group setting. And I always want this to be student-led, of course. So I pose the question like, what do you guys think about how we should treat each other? What should this look like? And sometimes that requires helping them reframe it a little bit. We might get some students who just say like, don't be mean, don't be rude, don't interrupt people, right? And if we're getting a lot of norms worded in the negative, like with don'ts, don't do this, don't do that. I try to help them reframe it in a positive, so it's tell us what to do rather than what not to do. So be respectful, listen while others are talking, those kinds of things. And I write them on a whiteboard first so that we can reframe them a little bit if we need to and modify the wording, and then transfer it to paper so that we can have a hard copy of our group norms. And then I do have my students sign it at the bottom to say that they're agreeing to treat each other in those ways and engage with each other in those ways in group. And I save it for my other sessions. I always revisit it at the very beginning, at least in the first couple of sessions, and then have it hanging in all of the sessions just so it's there visually. It also serves as like a good way to just kind of like non-verbally reference it, just to like point at one if a student's not following it, just to give them a little reminder from the beginning. So that's the second thing, icebreakers, set norms. The third thing that I always want to do in the first session is just review the limits of confidentiality. Anytime I start any kind of new counseling relationship, even if they've heard it from me in classroom guidance, maybe they've been in individual counseling for something before and they've heard it before, I always just want to review it. I think it's good practice to do that and just remind them of, what we say in group stays in group unless these things. And if you guys don't have like a poster or a visual or something with the limits of confidentiality on it, there's one in the free resource library on my blog. So if you guys get emails from me, at the bottom of the email every week, I have the link and the password to the free resource library. So you guys can go in there and, don't need that. Zillow notifications, don't need those this morning. You guys can download that limits of confidentiality poster. It's just a visual that you can use to reference when you're going over that with your students. Okay, so those were the first three: icebreakers, group norms, limits of confidentiality. And number 4, the last thing that I always want to do is just kind of end with some sort of psychoeducation about what the group's focus is. There's not a lot of time in that first session. You guys know this. It's kind of chaotic sometimes, like getting to know the students, them kind of feeling out what counseling is going to look like. Setting the group norms can sometimes take a while. Students might have a lot of questions about limits of confidentiality, but I always want to end with some sort of psychoeducation to kind of bring it back to why are we here? What are we going to be doing together? What are we going to be learning about? So like for a worry group, I like to use that smoke alarm analogy. I've shared it a couple of times here. So like, I don't know what that means. Okay, I was getting another notification at the bottom. So the smoke alarm analogy is that, has the smoke alarm ever gone off in your house? A lot of them will say yes, and I'll say, was there a fire in your house? So far, I've never had a yes answer about that. It's always been no, my dad burnt toast or my mom was burning something for dinner. So I say that anxiety is kind of like a smoke alarm, right? It can go off and send warning signals. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is a fire. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a danger. It's just a warning to say like there might be a danger. So that's the analogy that I like to start with those groups, the worry groups. That's a little piece of psychoeducation. For anger groups, something that I like to use, especially for my younger kids, I use the stop, drop, and roll analogy. Oh, sorry, I'm seeing a question at the bottom. How many students do you typically have in your groups? It kind of depends. So with my younger students, like K through 2, sometimes 3, I don't really like to have more than 4 in a group. I think that that's kind of my limit for where we can really be effective, or where I can really be effective with my younger students. But with my older students, I will kind of go up to 6, maybe 8. That's really like the cap. I don't really think that's a small group for me. I like to keep it 4 to 6 with my students, and I'm in a K to 6 school, just as a reminder. Some of you might not know that. So up in 6th grade, I'll have up to 6 students, and that's fine for me. But with the younger ones, I like to keep it 4 and under. And also that's kind of a space thing, especially this past year in my space. I really couldn't have more than 4 students in my space and have them spaced out appropriately for safety reasons. So like I was saying, the analogy that I use in my anger groups for my younger students, just to end with some sort of psychoeducation, is stop, drop, and roll. So when we feel angry, we want to first stop. Don't act out of aggression. Drop is drop your emotion level. So use some sort of coping strategy or some sort of skill to help your body and your mind feel calm. And then roll is just roll on with your day and move on and let it go or work it out in some way. So that's just the way I like to end my first session, as some sort of psychoeducation, to say like, this is what we're going to be learning about. This is why it's important. Here's a little sneak preview of what we're going to be learning about, things like that, so that they know what the group focus will be, and they know what they kind of have to look forward to in the group. So that was very quick, but those are the 4 things that I like to do in every first group counseling session. So some sort of icebreaker. We want everybody to feel comfortable, get those first session jitters out of the way. We want to set our norms so students know how to engage with each other in the group, how to treat one another, how to be an effective member of the group. And then for the 3rd thing, we always want to review the limits of confidentiality. And then 4th, psychoeducation, just leave them with some sort of sneak preview of what is to come, so they know what the focus is, they know what they'll be learning, and they have something to look forward to in the future sessions. So that's it. I will save this if you wanted to revisit it later or read any of the icebreaker comments that people had in there, and I will try to link it to some of my favorite icebreakers too, so you guys can read those if you want to. So thanks for hopping on this morning. And I don't always see all the questions right away. They don't pop up sometimes. So if you asked a question and I didn't answer it, just send me a message and I will chat with you over there. All right. I hope that you guys have a great day and are enjoying your summer, and I will talk to you soon.